Hey, Rabanzo here. In this episode, I speak with pianist, synthesist, producer, songwriter Glasys. We talk about a journey that begins with his immigration from Israel to Portland, Oregon, discovering a new local music scene, and pivotal moments that lead to touring and recording with Todd Rundgren. Let's do this. This is the Unstarving Musicians Podcast. I'm your host, Rabanzo. This podcast features conversations with me and indie music artists. Conversations intended to help other indie musicians be better at marketing, business, the creative process, and all the other things that empower us to do more of what we love. Make music. I want to say thanks to everyone who supports this podcast. The whole thing is intended to help independent musicians. Help them through a curation of expertise of other musicians and industry professionals. If you're loving the podcast, if you support the cause, visit unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor to learn about the various ways that you can offer your support. And by the way, if you're a listener of the podcast, I consider you a supporter, especially if you share it with a friend. Again, that's unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor to learn how you can get involved as a supporter. Have you heard of Bandzoogle? They power websites for musicians around the world, including Grammy winners. Their easy-to-use system will get you online fast. They have tons of mobile-friendly templates to help you customize your design and site content. It's built for musicians by musicians. Bandzoogle makes it easy to sell merch, grow your email list, integrate your socials, and they offer support from a musician-friendly team 7 days a week. Plans are affordable. Go to bandzoogle.com to start your 30-day free trial. Use the promo code Rabanzo to get 15% off your first year. Again, that's bandzoogle.com, promo code Rabanzo, R-O-B-O-N-Z-O. Glasys came on my radar by way of the Music Business Hacks podcast. You should definitely check that one out. He has a great story, not too unlike my own, in that he moved to a new country, in a way starting his music journey all over. In my case, that move was from Texas to California, which is sort of like moving between countries, right? We talk about this, how he got noticed by posting videos on Reddit. We explore opportunities he's had as of late and some of the specifics behind how he's made them happen. He's a hell of a musician. He's different. I found his story and journey in progress inspirational. Here's me and Glasys.
I found out about you through Simon Tam, which I know you know by now, but I was listening to that episode today. It was quite good. Unfortunately, I didn't listen to the whole thing. I think that's good because I was like, oh, that'd be kind of fun to drill into a little bit more, but I didn't want to get my entire interview from Simon's episode. But I would like to start by asking you about your two latest albums and maybe your two albums, period. I didn't know if there was maybe something I didn't see, but specifically The Pressure from 2016 and Defective Humanity from this year. I just wanted to ask you, in your own opinion, what the big differences, if any, or differences in any there are for you personally, be it from the end product to something about the way it happened.
Yeah, well, they were made like in a pretty different way. The EP, The Pressure, I released that shortly after I moved to the U.S. I'm originally from Israel, and I moved here in late 2015, and I quickly realized I need to have like some recorded music just to start getting gigs for my solo project. So I recorded that really quickly. I already had some songs ready. I hired a bunch of musicians. We went to the studio. We did like the whole thing in probably like a month. But the album, Defective Humanity, which I just released this month, I spent over a year working on it. I'd say that's the main difference, where I really took my time this time to polish it and get it, exactly where I want it to be.
And I noticed, and we happened to mention pre-record here, that you have the track on Defective Humanity with Todd Rundgren. How did that, and did I say his name right all these years? Rundgren, is that right?
Sorry, I didn't hear that last question. I didn't hear the end of it, so let's repeat that.
Oh, yeah, I was just asking. Well, I was asking if I pronounced Todd Rundgren's name correctly, but the initially was...
Yeah, you're pronouncing it correctly.
Okay. How did it come about that you guys worked together?
I met his son, who lives in Portland, who's a musician. And I didn't know he was his son, but he organizes these kind of house shows in his basement, and I played there. And we chatted for a bit, and he heard me play. And that was kind of the end of it at that point. But then a few months later, I get a message from him, I think on Facebook, and he's like, "Hey, my dad is Todd Rundgren, and he needs a keyboard player for his Utopia reunion tour because like their keyboard player dropped out at the last minute." And he asked me, "Are you interested?" And I was like, "Of course I'm interested." So then Todd sends me an email, and I ended up doing the tour, which was amazing. We played 30-something shows all around the U.S. and Canada. And, at that point, Todd got to know me. And when I was working on the album, I sent him this track. I asked him if he likes it and if he wants to add anything to it. And luckily, he loved it. And he recorded some vocals and a guitar solo on it. And it ended up being this really cool collaboration.
That is so fun. Had you, up to that point, had you done anything that felt quite as exciting as touring with him? And had there been some other things already that had occurred that were like, that were that exciting?
I mean, yeah, that was definitely the biggest gig I've had so far. And I'm actually going on the road with him again right now. Like, yeah, we're starting in late September.
How cool. Congratulations on all of that. That's very fun.
Oh,
you must have done a good job.
Hopefully. It was a tough gig. Last year's gig was tough because I had because their keyboard player dropped out at the last minute due to health reasons. So I had to learn all the material, which is not easy. It's this prog rock 70s kind of stuff with a lot of notes. So I had to learn all that in a week and a half. So that was a tough gig, but I really worked hard on it, and I think they were happy. So I'm really glad to get the opportunity to play with him again.
Well, that's amazing. That's amazing. I would love to, if there is an opportunity, or maybe it exists somewhere where you can just point me to know what the set list was for that first, that recent tour that you did with him, just to sort of wrap my head around, and maybe it's something we could even share with listeners if it's possible, around what you had to learn for them. That would be amazing. Yeah, if you could send it or whatever, however it works for you, would be great. And I want to back up. You mentioned moving to the U.S. not terribly long ago. I was a little curious about how that came about. What brought you to the U.S.?
Yeah, so I'm an American citizen. I was born an American citizen due to my parents being citizens. But I grew up in Israel. But I always wanted, having grown up in Israel and been part of the music scene there and studying music there, I always wanted something a little bigger than that. I always wanted to have more opportunities than are available in that small country, which, there's a pretty cool scene there, but it's very, very small. So I was planning to move here for many years, and my wife, she studied in Israel. So it took a while. We had to wait quite a long time until, everything lined up. But once it was possible, we just went for it. And we ended up moving to Portland, Oregon, because we were kind of looking for something that wasn't a super busy city like LA or New York, but still had a cool music scene and still had, still had that West Coast kind of vibe. So we ended up choosing Portland. Yeah, we love it here so far. We've been here for close to 4 years. I'm not sure if we'll stay here. We might end up moving somewhere else, but we're staying in the U.S. for sure. It's been great.
That's nice. And I always hear wonderful things about Portland. I think I had a super short business visit there years ago. It's a place I'd love to see, but I'm not surprised to hear you say that you have enjoyed it. And I was going to ask if you think you'll stay there. You just kind of answered that. I know there has to be a lot of allures of a musician and whatever else you and your wife have going on in your lives to all these different places now that you're somewhat closer to and can contemplate, since you've done such a big move once before. One thing I think I understood correctly from listening to your interview with Simon Tam on the Music Business Hacks podcast, that I've sort of gone through this experience before, but moving to a new area and not really knowing the music community. But did I understand correctly that you went to some open mic kind of things or jam things and started meeting people that way? Yeah,
so it was a slow start. I think it's like that for anybody who moves to a new country or to a new city even, where they don't know anyone. It can be kind of disheartening at first, but I was really determined to start making music and meeting people.
Did you attend different, like multiple jams or open mics, or was there one in particular that was kind of, and I asked the question because of my own experience, and I can reflect on a key moment in San Jose, California, having moved from Dallas, Fort Worth prior, which is almost like moving to another country. And so, yeah, I'm curious, was there one that sort of got the proverbial ball rolling in terms of meeting people, or did you kind of were there multiple jams in the area that you frequented?
Well, what got me started actually was I met another musician from Israel who was actually pretty well known in Israel, but he had just moved to Portland too. So we kind of like quickly became friends because we were kind of in the same place at the time. And it was easier to to do this with another person. So we went together to a bunch of open mics. I don't know if there was one specific one. I think there were maybe like 2 or 3 that we tried. We started playing our own songs. He'd play my songs with me. I'd jam on his songs as well. And we kind of supported each other, which definitely helped because you need all the support you can get at that point when, no one knows who you are. But going to those open mics kind of gave me and just seeing how people reacted to my music. And because before that, I hadn't really done my solo thing when I was living in Israel. So it was kind of new for me. So just seeing how well people responded, that kind of gave me the confidence to go ahead and start booking shows and taking it more seriously and making videos and promoting them kind of one step at a time until it grew.
That's very cool. And it seems like things have happened fairly quickly or relatively quickly because of your hard work, obviously. Did you know each other, the other musician from Israel, or you just fortuitously met one another in Portland?
Yeah, it's interesting because we had heard about each other, but we hadn't met until we both were here. His name is Amit Erez. He goes by The Secret C. That's his stage name.
Nice.
He's a fantastic singer-songwriter. His music is actually very different from mine. It's very kind of soft and chill, acoustic guitar, singer-songwriter music. But he's amazing, and he's an amazing musician, and he can play anything on guitar. He can play electric guitar, really well too. So he kind of got my music, and I got his, and we just had a really good time playing with each other. And then we actually ended up recording on each other's albums. So all the guitars on both my albums are done by him, and I do most of the keys on his stuff. So it kind of blossomed into this really great friendship and relationship.
I can't wait to check him out. And it sounds like it was so fortuitous because, like you said, like when I was in San Jose, for instance, I didn't meet any, have such a fortuitous thing happen, but how cool for you guys. And so you're quite an accomplished musician, and I imagine that you were at that time, and you spoke very highly just now of his musicianship. I'm kind of curious to know if you guys walked into those jams, and I know you say your confidence was building as you went along, but when you look back, were you guys surrounded with, a lot of equally talented people? Maybe that's the wrong way to say it, but people that had the level of advanced playing skills that you guys did, or were you a bit in a minority?
You mean here in Portland?
Yes.
Yeah. At first, we were going to all these open mics. So, open mics, you'll get people at different levels of musicianship. So it took a while to really find kind of my scene here. Because I come from a pretty diverse background. I, played classical music and jazz, and then I got into electronic music and synthesizers. So I've played a lot of different styles of music. So it took a while to find people who are kind of like-minded and had a similar background. But there are a ton of talented people here in Portland and great musicians. Once I started gigging and I started going out to shows, which that was a big thing as well. That was my way of meeting new musicians. So once I started going out to shows, meeting all these great people, introducing myself, making videos so they could hear what I sound like, and then, kind of growing that network that way and playing with them, it just kind of grew from there and got introduced to all these really amazing musicians here.
Well, it's smart, and I guess I'm interested in it. It's a theme that comes up in any of my other episodes about this whole relocating or meeting people at jams. And I asked about my question about the open mic thing and the level of experience that you encountered was probably a little naive, is probably not the best word, but my experience was at a blues jam. If you've ever been to one of those, they can be a room filled with highly talented people or skilled or a bit of a varying thing. And then I've been involved in these other types of things that are, called like pro jams, where you've got a core bunch of musicians that are playing a theme thing of covers, and they kind of pre-sign people up and will let people come sign up to play on these songs as well. And only more recently, I've seen a couple of open mics where the talent level varies a lot more, but only until recently, because I've moved again to a new area. And yeah, I see a wider range of talent levels. So I kind of forgot about that. So then it was interesting, I suppose, or noteworthy that you made a point of going out and seeing shows. And that's a good reminder to everyone. So what inspired you question is, what initially inspired you to try the whole drum pad bass notes thing with one hand and integrate that with your keyboards? Where did that come from?
Yeah, that came a little later. Well, I actually experimented with that years ago in Israel. I made a short video where I did something similar, and people actually really liked it, but it was so challenging for me that I kind of decided to, put that idea like on the back burner for a bit. But once I was here, and after I started making some videos and my YouTube channel started growing, I decided to give it another shot. And I also found this keyboard that specifically, it's an Akai small like MIDI controller that has the pads right above the keys, so they're super close. So it actually made it easier to try that technique. So I made a video called Finger Twisters, where I play these 10 short ideas. Not all of them have the drum pad thing, but a few of them do. And I kept them short because that let me challenge myself, but still be able to pull it off with, if I'd written like full songs like that, it would have been a lot more difficult at first. So I put out this video and it got a really great reaction. That was my first experience of a video kind of going viral and being shared by all these new people. So then I figured, I better make more of these. That really motivated me to keep practicing this technique and developing it. And I made a lot of videos since then, and I've been getting better and better at it to the point where I could write full songs using this technique. And I just finished a short tour where I, for the first time, actually toured with these drum pads and did the whole thing that I do on my videos. So it's been interesting for sure. And right now, actually, I have a custom-built controller that this guy, his name is Moldover. He's a really, really great musician and gear designer, MIDI controller designer. So he built this custom instrument for me where instead of pads, I have arcade buttons because I just find them more comfortable to drum on. They have this...
Are these the one with the red buttons on it?
Yeah. So I've been using that now for a year.
Cool. So you have a wonderful, by the way, for people listening, you have a wonderful YouTube channel. Just search Glasys, Glasys, or find that and everything else, all his social links and music and stuff at glassysmusic.com. And again, that's GLASYSmusic.com. But yeah, great YouTube channel. And you know what I heard?
Thank you.
I heard Simon talk about something that I'm just reminded that you did. I'm seeing hearing about another instance of it, but in this case, you'd done that one video and it went over pretty well. So you were motivated to do some more and capture the momentum. And I suppose maybe it's very natural for musicians, but maybe sometimes they miss it. I don't know. And I heard you and Simon talking about a couple of different things that had happened for you on Reddit, which was extremely cool for me to hear about because I've not had conversations with, I don't think, any of my guests yet. And maybe it just has never come up and I never thought to ask or I've never seen they do anything there. In fact, I'm not sure, maybe your website does have I don't know if there are any links on your website to that stuff, but I'm not sure I would have known that you were doing that had I not been listening to that episode that Simon did where you guys got into that. But he said also in at least one of the 2 instances that I heard about that he was complimenting you on capitalizing on that moment. And you had even said at some point that, yeah, I just figured I'd better keep the momentum going. Has this been kind of a recurring thing, or is this, or have there just maybe been a couple of isolated great incidences and you recognize them, or has it been something you're always trying to do? And what I'm asking specifically about is that, oh, people like this. I'm going to follow this as far as I can and see if I can get more attention toward my craft, my art.
Yeah. Well, I kept doing this because I enjoyed it, first and foremost.
That's good.
Yeah. I wouldn't have done it just because people like it. I've been working on this technique because it's been really challenging and fun for me. But yeah, Reddit, actually the first time I posted on Reddit, the first few times I posted on Reddit, I didn't get that much of a reaction. But I knew that I had heard of all these musicians who really blew up on that website. So I figured, like, why not just put a link there? It takes a second. And if it does well, then great. If not, then, well, it's just another website where you put your music in. But when it did work, it worked like big time. So I'm glad I did. And I just, I try to keep just trying different things and seeing what sticks. Because I see a lot of people, a lot of musicians, they find kind of their way of doing things and then they stick with that even if it's not working that well for them. I think they just get comfortable with, with whatever their perception of this is how you should promote your music is. But I think it's important to try new things all the time. If something isn't working or if you're not getting that much of a reaction, try to do something different or try to promote your music in a different way or create something entirely different that you would not have even considered before.
Yeah, that's really great advice. I'm reminded, I'm going to see if I can find his name. I'm blanking at the moment, but not too long ago I had a very accomplished artist management guy, and he initially made his mark in music publishing songs, but for whatever reason he found a real fondness for helping other artists achieve what they want to, and I guess he felt pretty good at it. But one of the things I asked him was, what is the, Jason Davis is his name, but I was asking him, what are the most common traits, if any, that jump to mind when you think of successful artists, those who manage to find success? And without hesitation, he said, the people that have had the most success, all of the ones I've worked with, and he's had a very long career at this, and he said that they get out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, totally.
And yeah, what you were saying about trying new things all the time, that it's really important to do versus, we all love our comfort zone, or at least some of us do. And some people, it sounds like you, wisely so, you sound like you appreciate getting outside of that area and trying new things. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I get kind of bored if I just stick to my comfort zone. I get bored and I get frustrated because then I kind of get a little angry at myself for not getting out of that comfort zone. I enjoy challenging myself, but you have to challenge yourself just the right amount where it's not too overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. And is that a kind of an I want to say attitude, but but is that something that you've always had inside you, that if you do, and even outside of music, maybe when you're a little, I don't know how early you started playing, probably pretty early in life, but has that been a part of your personality always, that if you do the same thing that you tend to get bored and you want to try something a little different?
I think so. Maybe not in every aspect of my life. There are certain things that as a person, I don't, I'm not a very outdoorsy person, let's put it that way. So certain things where I'm fine with that. I've kind of accepted that and I'm comfortable with that. The fact that I don't go on a ton of hikes or something like that. But when it comes to music and art, it's really important to me to keep growing and challenging myself and trying new things, because otherwise I think the art suffers if you just keep repeating yourself.
Yeah. You know what? I want to take a quick break here and expose the listeners to a bit of your art. So we're going to listen to a track called People from your latest album, Defective Humanity. Here it is. You're listening to my conversation with Glasys. So, tell me what the solo tour that you mentioned earlier looks like, and are you planning to do another one?
My solo tour was really short because I'm so busy doing other stuff and going on these bigger tours with other artists. I couldn't do a very long tour, but what I did is I booked around 5 shows on the West Coast, mostly, pretty small venues. Played for like between 50 to 100 people a night, but I kind of liked that. It was very intimate.
How big were those? We were talking about the shows with Todd Rundgren. How large are those in comparison?
Oh,
I'm assuming those are kind of the biggest shows you've done.
Yeah, we played mostly theaters that seated maybe a couple thousand people. So it's a very different kind of show for sure. But I've noticed that the number of people in the venue is not really what matters. Just the overall energy. And you can play a house show and, play for 30 people and have an incredible energy. Then you can play a giant theater where you feel really like disconnected from the audience and you don't have that energy. So really it's not about the size of the venue and the number of people. It's all about the vibe and the energy.
I get that. And did you? Do you think you'll do another one? I'm just sort of imagining if you do, it's going to be different because you're going through so many experiences right now, many of which are playing live in different types of scenarios, and we'll maybe learn some new things about yourself and what you enjoy. But are you hoping that you'll do another one in the future?
Yeah, I'll definitely do more. The question is how will I do it? I might do it differently. That's what I mean. Because I did this tour on my own. I went out, with my own car. I drove all the way to California. I brought all my gear. I had to basically wear a lot of hats and do everything. I booked it. I promoted the shows. It's just a lot to take on, as one person. So I think that the next time I do this, I'm definitely going to need some help, especially if I go further away from home, go to the East Coast or something like that. I will definitely need some help, but I definitely want to do it again. I just have to find maybe the right people or the right team, or it could even be one person, but someone to help me, take a bit of that load off of my shoulders.
I'm just imagining that there had been a bit of a lonely aspect to it, but I don't know. Was there?
It is kind of lonely, but to be honest, I love podcasts. So I listen to a lot of podcasts on my long drives, and that kind of got me through it pretty easily.
What are a couple of your favorites, by the way?
I was listening a lot to Simon Tam's podcast. He has so many episodes of it. He releases one every day. I just kind of started at episode 1, and some of them are really short. Some are 5 minutes but he has a lot of interesting, advice about music industry and music business tips. So it was fun just listening to that. And then another one I listen to a lot. He doesn't have a lot of episodes because he's a busy musician. His name is Nick Semrad. He's a keyboard player, really great keyboard player who lives in LA, and he tours with Corey Henry and a number of other people and Noah. And he started his own podcast where he interviews other musicians, and they just kind of chat about their different touring experiences and also the mental health aspect of being a musician and stuff like that. And I found that podcast to be really kind of refreshing and interesting and offering like a really unique perspective.
That's cool. I will have to check that out. I had not heard of him. And, I told Simon I found him because I was doing some kind of focused work on growing listenership for this podcast. He was kind enough to schedule some time with me. So we actually just published the same interview on each other's podcast because we had a little misschedule. He's like, you want to just try and do both at the same time? And I thought, oh, great idea. And I wasn't sure if he would publish the whole thing, but we did. And it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot about him. And much of that after we spoke. And for instance, I'm talking to my older brother who's been helping me with some things related to the podcast. And he knew who Simon Tam was. He lives in Dallas-Fort Worth. And he's like, oh, yeah, they were a big good. And I didn't know about him before. I just found him. And then I'm kind of learning more and more things that I didn't even ask him about, which I'm sure he's been asked about a million times. But it was a really fun conversation. And I was thinking just today while I was listening to, probably about half of your interview with him, that I should go back and listen to this. It's probably got some really great stuff. Did you know that Simon, he's putting the brakes on the podcast? And in fact, I don't know if mine was the last episode, but he was going to stop doing them, at least for the foreseeable future. I was hoping he can continue to do them or resume them at some point. But did you know that?
Well, I knew that he was planning on doing like 365 episodes for the first season.
Oh, okay.
That's what he said, and then he may or may not continue after that. But I'm sure he needs a break because I can't even imagine like making an episode every day. And with his busy schedule, he's in a band, he tours, he wrote a book, he does all this other stuff. So it must have been a pretty grueling schedule just to be able to release a new episode every day. I'd understand, if he needed a break or if he even stopped doing it altogether. But there is such a wealth of information on those 360. I haven't listened to all of them. It's so much. But, I'll probably eventually go through them. But he has so much interesting advice.
I'm definitely going to go back and listen to those. But yeah, so podcasts kept you company on your first tour alone then.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people will listen to music on long drives because I play music all the time. I know not every musician is like this, but I personally prefer to listen to people talking than music.
Yeah, and there's so much, this kind of, it's not a joke, but, like a auto university because of all the great audio content that's available that we listen to on our commutes. It's just a lot of fun, but I hear you. I listen to a little bit of music when I'm driving, but I tend to give me the opportunity to spend my time more listening to podcasts. I would love to ask you about a couple of gear questions. One of them, I think, may be somewhat shorter response, but we'll see. Tell me about the Therovox.
Yeah.
Which featured in that finger twist. Is it called finger twisters?
Finger twisters, yeah. I've used it in some other videos as well, and I've used it on a few songs on my album. I bought that instrument when I was still living in Israel, probably around 7 years ago now. And this one guy in Canada, he builds these instruments. They're kind of inspired by a very ancient electronic instrument, French electronic instrument called the Onze Martineau. I think that's how you pronounce it.
I thought you were going to say theremin.
Well, it's kind of a combination of both, but the Onze Martineau was this instrument that had a ring where you put one finger inside and then you control the pitch by moving that ring from side to side on a wire. And what that lets you do is it lets you get that kind of theremin-y, kind of continuous pitch sound and do vibrato, but you get a lot more control over the pitch you're playing because there's a keyboard or kind of a graphic of a keyboard under it. You can see what note you're hitting. So you guys still got that visual feedback, which helps a lot in playing in tune. Because a theremin, I don't know if you've ever tried playing a theremin, but it's incredibly difficult to hit the right note.
I have.
Yeah. Because you're basically just waving your hand in the air and hoping, and you're just using your ear, and it can be really, really difficult. But the people who can play it well, they spend many years practicing.
Oh, yeah.
So the Therevox is a little easier because you have that visual feedback, and you want to slide your finger to a G, you can see the G and then move your finger there. So anyway, I saw this instrument online, and as a keyboard player, I always wanted to have that extra dimension of expression where I can do vibrato and things like that and get more of that kind of vocal organic sound. And that instrument really lets you do all that. So yeah, I bought one and I haven't parted with it since. I don't plan on parting with it either. I love it.
It's a cool looking instrument and unusual. And then I'd forgotten about this until just now. Oh no, I didn't. I had a note for it. But what is that thing that has like a blow tube? It's in the same video, but it's a keyboard, but you have some sort of apparatus that I guess you're breathing into.
Apparatus that I'm breathing into?
That's what it looked like. Maybe it's a different video, but yeah, I saw a video of you've got like this tube in your mouth and you're playing. It'd be funny if you were just drinking water or something. And I thought, what is that? Oh,
do I have a video with it? I'm not sure. Are you sure that was me?
I thought it was. Let's see if I can find it though. I'll have to look. That's funny. I could have been watching. Man, I swear I was watching you though. But I'll have to look and see. I'll let you know.
It could have been a talk box. I know, a lot of people use talk boxes, but I don't have a talk box video. And
that's funny. That's what it reminded me of. And I wonder if just YouTube was doing. I maybe watching one video and then caught a autoplay of another one and thought I was still watching you. That's too funny. Okay, well, never mind about that one.
And it's hard to tell these bearded, bald keyboard players apart.
You'd think I would have noticed you have a distinct look, and especially when you're intensely playing it, you'd think I would have noticed. I'm going to have to find that now. It's gonna bug the heck out of me.
Well, it's interesting because here in Portland, there are a couple of keyboard players who kind of resemble me, and people will often come up to them and just be like, "Hey, Gil, how are you doing?" Or people will tag me on the wrong post because they think it's me playing. It's interesting.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, I'll have to find that. Yeah, so some of these questions are kind of selfish, and this one included, but I would love to know about the video gear that you're currently using, and if we have time, maybe how you started, what video gear you started with for your YouTube channel. And I guess also where the audio plays in as well, if there's anything special about that.
Yeah, I think the audio is really the important part when you're making music videos. So I record all my audio directly into my audio interface and my DAW, and then I mix it as well as I can and master it and all that. The video aspect of it, I keep really simple. Probably for the first year, all my videos were done with my phone. I just bought this little kind of flexible tripod thing, put it on, found a good angle and shot using that. And no one really seemed to care that I was using my phone. Because the audio, I wouldn't use the audio from the phone, obviously. I would mix down the audio using my interface and then sync that in video editing software, which also I was using for a long time the free iMovie that comes with your Mac. But then, recently, probably a year ago, I decided to buy a better camera. I bought a Canon D70, a 70D, and a couple of lenses. And I also bought Final Cut so that I can edit my videos more professionally. And but still, I still actually use my phone a lot because I'll shoot from a couple different angles. So I'll use my phone for one angle and the camera for another. And yeah, I've noticed that video quality is it's good to have high video quality, but the audio is a lot more important when you're doing these music.
What type of phone do you have that you're using occasionally?
Well, I've switched phones since then, but I was using an LG, I think, phone. Forgot the name. Was it a G4 maybe? And it had a pretty good camera. Now I'm using the Galaxy S9, which has a decent camera as well.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know. I think I wanted to ask that too for other people to think about doing videos that haven't yet, or maybe they just started and they're using their phone, but people tend to, especially when they're getting started, obsess over gear. And I, did the same thing when I was about to start podcasting over what microphone I should use. And I had a microphone I'm still using in my possession at the time. I was like, should I use this thing? Anyway, I think it's cool to know that, and that for a long time you were using a phone, just the phone, and then you bought that newer camera.
Yeah, I really think that when it comes to at least the video part of it, it's not as important. If you're making some really interesting content, then people will watch it, even if it's not 4K quality. So I'd say, like, if you want to, if someone who's listening wants to start making videos, just go for it. Just use whatever you have at first. Yeah, for the audio, I would try, you don't need a super fancy mic either. Just even a cheap mic, but I wouldn't use the phone audio. Although, you sometimes you see these amazing videos that go viral where it's just phone audio as well, just because the content is so great, because the musician is so great. Really, there are no rules. I'd say just go for it.
Yeah, on that note, I'm remembering all of a sudden about something else that you and Simon discussed a little bit, and it was related to one or two, going back to Reddit, one or two posts that you had done, and you had tweaked the title or the subject of one of them with the title, and it made this huge difference. Do you find yourself doing that kind of thing? And that all made sense to me, by the way, because I know it can make a difference. But do you find yourself tweaking that kind of thing for any videos that you do, where you're playing a little bit with the way it's positioned, be it from title or maybe some way that you're trying to tell the story for it beyond the actual music?
Yeah, sometimes I'll tweak the title. That post specifically was, so one of my videos that was on Reddit kind of blew up, and then T-Pain saw it and he liked it, and he asked me if I want to collaborate with him. And then I made this other video where I was jamming on his stuff. So I was trying to really get his attention. And that one, I actually tweaked the title, and first time I posted it, it didn't do well. And then when I posted it again with a different title, it really blew up and got to the first page of Reddit. So the titles are definitely important. But I noticed that on YouTube, for instance, you can't really tell how well your title is doing because they don't give you that information specifically. And also it takes time for the algorithm to rank your video. So you don't get that immediate feedback like on Reddit, for instance, where you can immediately tell if people are responding or not. So, I'm a little more cautious about tweaking titles on YouTube, but every now and again I will do that. On Reddit, it definitely made a huge difference because when I changed the title and I changed it to something that kind of explained a little more just the story of that whole collaboration, that grabbed people's attention.
Thanks for retelling that, or a little bit of it, what had happened on Reddit, and also sharing that you're a little more reserved about trying to do it on YouTube, pointing out that it varies on whatever platform. You have to consider when the feedback's going to come. But also I think it's so cool to consider this whole kind of A/B thing, if you can do that, or just tweaking small things sometimes to get the attention of those that you're hoping to get the attention of, or to get your music to the ears and eyes of those that you're hoping to. So that's really cool stuff.
Yeah. I think on YouTube, you really have to consider the searchability of your videos. So that's probably my number one consideration when I'm trying to come up with a title. I try to think of keywords that people would search for and how I can add those keywords to my title without being obnoxious. So just try to think of what people would search for and how you can. Some people I'll even see writing these really long titles with all these redundant words, but they just do it because they know that their videos will rank better in the searches that way. Yeah,
their keyword stuff in their titles, sure. I get it.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, and I will, I was thinking it was on your homepage, but there's actually a photo done by Hunter Pay on the about page of your website. And I was just curious, it's a fascinating photo. It looks like you're in a library or bookstore. just looking up. Any story behind that?
Yeah, that was at Powell's bookstore here in Portland. Hunter is a good friend of mine and a musician as well, and an amazing photographer. When I just recorded my EP, I needed some photos to start promoting it, and I asked him if he wanted to do a photo session with me. So he came over. We did some shots at my place. Like there's the main cover photo on Facebook and most websites I use is just me kind of lying down on a rug with a keyboard next to me.
Right. Yeah. Great pick.
So that was done just in my home. He just stood on a couch and shot it from above. But then, he said let's take a little walk and see if we can get some cool shots outside of your place. And then we walked by this bookstore and he's like, oh, let's try this. So, we asked for permission, of course, and they said, okay. And so we put the keyboard kind of between two bookshelves, and it turned out to be this really cool shot. And actually those shots, I've been using them for years now because they just turn out really great.
Yeah, they're cool. And I'm looking at an easy place to look just at Facebook at some of the stuff that you've done over the years, and maybe some very recently. You got quite a bit of good stuff. But those are both the ones that you cited, the one where you're on the rug and the one we're talking about in the bookstore, both very, very cool. I just want to ask you one last question. I'll let you get at your Friday night. I've been actually shooting this one by former guests. I'm doing a little research for a second book, and so I'll ask you since I have you right here, but what is your number one biggest challenge right now with your music career?
I think the biggest challenge is to keep myself engaged and interested and not burn myself out. That would be the biggest challenge. Because I know that as long as I keep creating, then it'll grow. But if I burn out or if I get, frustrated and stop doing this, then it's going to stop growing. That's just the way to.
Yeah. Well, thanks for answering that under pressure. I learned a little lesson just now, and that is so that I can let people off the hook, just have a backup question. Say, well, forget that one. Let's go to this one. And if that one comes to you, you can tell me later. But thank you again for spending time with me. It was really good talking with you.
It was great to be here. Thank you so much.
You got it.
Hey, thanks again for listening. If you are loving the podcast, please visit unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor to learn about the various ways that you can offer your support. And again, if you're a listener, I consider you a supporter, especially if you shared it with a friend. Thank you. Have you heard of Bandzoogle? Yep, they're powering websites for musicians all over the world. Their easy system will get you online fast. They have tons of mobile-friendly templates to help you custom design your site and content. It's built for musicians by musicians. They make it easy to sell merch, grow your email list, integrate your socials, and they offer support from a musician-friendly team 7 days a week. Plans are affordable. Go to bandzoogle.com to start a free trial, and be sure to use the promo code Robonzo to get 15% off your first year. That's bandzoogle.com, promo code Robonzo, ROBONZO. Look for show notes and links to most everything mentioned in this episode at unstarvingmusician.com/podcast. Thanks so much for listening. With a whole lot of gratitude, peace, love, and more cowbell.